All right, this is Rodrick Cox, and welcome to today's podcast. And I am fortunate to be joined from uh, Miami, Florida, with Miss Katrin Theodoli. Hello, Katrin.
Hi, Rodrick. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic. So I feel very fortunate to have the master builder of Magnum Marine, someone who has been around for so many years and built such incredible boats. And I appreciate you having you on today.
Oh, that's so kind of you. Thank you.
Well, Catherine, these are a little bit different times, aren't they? With the COVID-19 and the shelter in place and unbelievable circumstances. So, how are you doing?
Oh, we're doing very well because we are taking it very, very, very seriously, and everybody's quarantined and no one goes to the office, and it's rather frightening. On the other hand, we see a lot of people that don't believe it's so frightening and are out and about, and so it's a bit confusing. But I think it's better to be safe than take any kind of risks.
No, I think you're right. And I think to some degree, I don't know if the news and the media helps in circumstances like this or not, but I'm joining you from Charlotte, North Carolina, and people are taking it pretty seriously here as well. We definitely don't have the number of cases as so many states do, the hotspots as well as the deaths. But you can see when you go to the grocery store and things like that, a lot of the aisles are empty and definitely the meats are picked over. So it's definitely a different time. And so, and I'm sure, I think you're down there in Palm Beach. So what's it like? What's it been like over the last 8 weeks? I bet people were a lot more stringent early on, and I bet you they're getting a little stir crazy now.
Well, yes, I think they are. I don't see much of it because I'm staying, in my home,
Good for you.
and so I don't go out much. We're very fortunate. We can take walks, we can go to the beach, we can work, and so we're fortunate and don't really have the confrontation, but not everybody has that luxury. And so I think it must be very, very hard if you live with a lot of other people, if you live in confined spaces in an apartment in one room. And so it must be extremely difficult. It's extremely difficult for everyone. I think we all just want this to end.
That's for sure, and I think it's going to be tough for everyone and governors around the United States because it's going to be challenging for them to not start the opening process, and then obviously the goal of protecting all the individuals within their states. So I think it's going to be a very challenging time all the way around. Um, I know you have a place in New York. So when did you leave New York, or were you even very close to the timing of all of this?
Uh, in a way, yes. I went up to New York. I spend most of my time here in Florida, in Miami, where my office is, my factory is. But I went out to New York for a memorial for a friend of mine on January 30th. And already then, we were extremely worried. And I remember talking to my friends and my dentist, whom I went to see, and I thought, I really shouldn't be seeing a dentist in this time. It could be dangerous. But anyway, the dentist gave me some masks because everybody was already talking how difficult it was to get masks. And when I flew back to Florida, I wore my mask and I wore my gloves. And so we were all extremely concerned that this pandemic was arriving. And so it was rather surprising to see that the government actually didn't mention anything and there was really no action. And this is January 30th when we were talking with our friends, where we were already in panic mode, if you can
Right.
imagine me with my mask in the airplane,
Right. Right. Well, what was a little bit of that panic? Was that just from what you were hearing on the news, or what people were saying in New York, or your friends abroad, or how is that sort
No,
of?
well, I mean, obviously we all had heard about Wuhan and China and but mainly I think there were some cases already upstate in New York. Was it Westchester or someone had come back from Florida? There were cases in the United States, and in fact, I said before I went to the dentist, and he and I were talking, and I said, "How do you come to work? And do you take a bus? And isn't it dangerous?" And the hygienist was saying, "Well, I don't know if I'm going to come next week because it really is dangerous, and they're disinfecting the garbage bins, and I don't know if we can come to work anymore." So amongst the people I talked to in New York, we were all already very, very concerned, if not to say panicky, because there were cases in the United States.
Do you think you got a little bit of a head start on understanding the severity of it than the rest of us did in the southern states?
Well, I think it was because I went to New York. I think that when I left from Florida, it didn't concern me at all. But I think there was a case somewhere upstate New York, and there were some cases in 1, 2, 3 cases, I don't know, but that's what we talked about January 30th, and I know the date because of, the memorial up there. So that's when it really hit me, and I was a little surprised that there was no real official action taken at that time.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would just guess that your travels for going up there definitely heightened your awareness, and all the people that are around you were probably taking it very seriously and realizing the importance of it, because it was a long time after
Absolutely,
for North
absolutely.
Carolina and the other states, and
Mm.
us to because I don't think we were really believing what we were seeing on television. And being a New Yorker as you are, and obviously you're up there multiple times throughout the year and into your home, but can you believe the pictures that you see now of
Ah,
Times Square and what it's like?
terrible, terrible, terrible.
I
I
mean,
mean,
would you have ever thought you would have ever seen something like that unless it was in a movie?
no, you're right. And you don't know what the future will be for cities if people, generally speaking, will move up, tend to move out of the cities.
Yeah, I mean, I think
It could be.
it very well could be. And now with the whole situation and the challenges of reopening businesses, and it sounds like New York is trying to get closer to that, but the more weeks that continue to be extended, it's just got to be unfathomable to think what it's going to do to those businesses up there.
Yeah, but it could mean, I don't know if that's true, it could mean the end of big cities, and you see the similar trends in third world countries, where poorer people are hurt even more, and because they don't have running water, because they all live together, and they are now, there's this trend that they're going back to the countryside. They're getting out of the big cities where they don't have accommodation. So it could be a trend back to the countryside, which may not be a bad idea,
Right.
especially in a pandemic, right?
Absolutely, absolutely, and no doubt, overseas was hit very badly, and in Italy and Rome. And do you have friends that you've had a chance to speak with over there, and what they say?
Oh yes, we have strong contacts, especially in Italy. And I'm actually part Italian. I have an Italian passport, so I feel very close to Italy. And they've been devastated, absolutely devastated. It's been horrible. And we have a few friends, as you remember, Tullio Abate died of the virus. So when you know someone firsthand, it's even more shocking and more horrifying.
Did
So it's been terrible.
and it seems like they did well, being so, I mean, obviously these cities are so affectionate, you know, the people themselves, and to realize they went to a complete shutdown to shelter in place and for such a long period of time, you know, that probably has to take a mental toll on so many people over there, and then realize just how many people were infected by the disease and how many people passed.
Yeah, I think mentally it's hard for just about everybody. And but obviously when you are living close together, and Italian cities are, you know, old cities, so they're very, very closely knit and closely together. It's extremely difficult to keep that social distancing that we now feel is helpful, you know.
Right, right, and it's definitely showing the value in it, and obviously, it's been successful in that right. And now that we open up, it's a little bit more challenged. Going to be challenging because we're going to see not only an increase in the testing for individuals, but then we're surely going to see a spike in both you know, cases and deaths. Is there a particular city you know, that you are either from or have relationships with, you know, in Italy?
Well, I have a lot of relationships all over Italy, but my husband's family was from Rome. Rome wasn't as badly hit, as you know, as the northern part of Italy.
Right.
And they believe it sort of started with the fashion show, I think they had in mid-February. And that was sort of the beginning of this
Right.
lockdown in Italy, which was so catastrophic.
Right. And again, slightly interesting to say that where you sort of gather that information, there was a little bit more of the mid-February, and here you were up January 30th, sort of already getting an indication of what was going on.
That's right. No, and I remember that January, and I remember flying back with a mask on my face.
Right. Right.
So clearly I was impressed.
Did you get a picture of yourself?
No, no.
Oh, come on. All right. Well,
No,
I
but
know.
you know, it's incredible to think that it was January 30th and we were all already in that state of mind, you know.
Right, right. Well, you know, being that you've been in boat manufacturing for so long and you've traveled internationally probably thousands of times, have you ever experienced anything close to this that you know, maybe there's nothing that compares to this, but has there been any time in the past that you felt was pretty unbelievable from a standpoint of either a health crisis or financial crisis or just maybe even to terrorism or something like that?
Not in my personal life, and I must say that all of us born after the Second World War have had a really, really lucky run of peace and prosperity. So we've been very, very fortunate. This is the first time that something dramatic has hit us all, I think, you know, and probably that's why it's so difficult to understand and difficult to cope with.
Yeah, well, I know you're right from that standpoint, and I know I was, you know, teasing you earlier before we got on the phone that nobody called you to come up with the vaccine, but it sounds like you might be able to help them out if they call you. Uh,
I was just joking. I was joking because it seems that nobody really knows, right? So you listen to this report and that report, but it just seems that there really isn't an answer yet.
yeah,
So the only thing is to distance, but I'm beginning really to believe more and more that people will go back to the countrysides and to houses. And I remember when I first bought this house, it's my first house ever. I used to only live in apartments in Palm Beach, and it was with the thought in mind that if something really terrible happened in the world, and at that time I wasn't thinking of a pandemic, but rather a world war or something, that I'd be safer there, that my family and I would be safer there. And we were also thinking of something along those lines with the charity that I'm involved with, with rebuilding, and restoring abandoned villages of the past in Europe. As you see that that's happening. And they will be doing probably similar things in third world countries, you know?
Absolutely. Well, that's it's amazing to think how long ago when you in that first home in Palm Beach and sort of where we are today. But I do agree with you. I would say that there could be a little bit of an exit strategy for people sort of leaving the big cities and those big high rises, and possibly moving to the suburbs and even a little bit farther from there. So. Well, Katrin, we're going to do a couple series of podcasts here. So for today's, I want to thank you for joining us. And I don't know if you'd like maybe to give a shout out in Italian to all your friends and family and listeners overseas. There's an opportunity here if you'd like to say hello and wish everyone well.
Well, actually, I already did that on my Facebook page. And we're going to have, when all this is over, we're going to have a Magnum reunion in Italy with all the boats of our clients. And I think everybody's just enthused to get out, to get away, and for this terrible, terrible time to pass. So, ciao Italia.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much, Katrin. And we'll talk to you again very soon.
Thank you, Rodrick.